Go. Oh, you're really in for a treat on this one. We back, Pizza King podcast. I'm the host, Tyrell Reed. We had a very special guest this week. I sat down with Mike Bausch from Andolini's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the most reviewed pizzeria in Oklahoma, by the way, talking about all of his success. They're 12 units strong between pizza, food halls, fine dining. He's been there for 20 years now, just totally killing the game. He's got a book out, Unsliced. He's got a restaurant systems course called Unsliced to partner with the book. We broke down, all of the eight components that he has found over his time, and the work that he's done with over 50 restaurant partners. He has really created something special out there. So you're in for a treat with this episode. Get your pen, get your pad. You're gonna learn a lot. Everything from marketing to vendor negotiations to how you evaluate a new opportunity. Very, 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 very useful information for anyone who is potentially looking to get into the restaurant business, especially the pizza business, but restaurant business in general. He's got all of the tools, all of the things that you need to really get that done. So stay tuned, check out this episode, reach out to him. All of his links are in the show notes. Enjoy it. All right, there we go. We're live, we're recording. Mike, how's it going?
It's going great. Yourself?
I'm doing really well. We just got past a little hurricane here in Florida, so all is good here.
Florida's super fun for that, right?
Especially this time of year. It's like end of summer, back to school. Like, let's throw your entire schedule off with a storm.
Yes, it is.
That's pretty much how it goes. Thank you for coming on and joining us. Can you introduce yourself and tell the listeners? I'm sure everyone that listens to me knows who you are, but for those that haven't seen you, tell us who Mike Bausch is.
Right on. I am Mike Bausch. I've been putting cheese on bread since 2004. I opened Andolini's Pizzeria with my brother January 8th, 2005. Since then, we now have 12 things, which is 5 Andolini's, a food truck, fine dining restaurant, food hall locations. We got a lot of different stuff, all in Tulsa, Oklahoma, all owned by me and my brother. I wrote a book about how managing all those operations called Unsliced that came out in 2020, and it was popular enough that I created a course for restaurant owners based on that. I'm also former president of the World Pizza Champions, a group I'm really proud of, and we put out a book last year, or this year actually, called The Pursuit of Pizza. That is a nonprofit book. It's a legit cool book, but it sent 7 kids to their Make-A-Wish wishes when we all were here in Tulsa. We put on the Guinness record for the world's largest pizza party. So I've done a lot of random stuff in the pizza game over the last 20 years.
So did you always know it was going to be pizza for you?
No, not at all.
How did that happen?
It's I say it, I've said this before, like, it's not a high bar to love pizza. It's like, did you always love pizza? I'm like, yeah, that doesn't mean I should be this. Like, that's not if you'd asked me when I was in high school, I thought I was going to be a JAG lawyer and in the Marines, and I basically went off that presumption all the way through college, went to Officer Candidate School of the Marine Corps, and found that after doing all the training, I had type 1 juvenile diabetes. So that went away, which I'm fine with. I got all the training of the Marine Corps while in a handicapped state. So it showed me how far I could push my mind and my body when I set my mind to something, which I wouldn't have known otherwise. Like, I wouldn't have been allowed in there if they knew I really had diabetes. And it was kind of a fluke that I got through. Like, a bunch of things failed that I, as a full-blown type 1 non-insulin creating diabetic, got through the Marine Corps entrance processing. But once I went through it all, I was like, I went to law school now on my dime. I went there for like 90 minutes and I said, this is not for me. At the same time, my brother was getting transferred to Tulsa, Oklahoma with his business, Alamo Rent-A-Car, that he was vice president of at the time.
Okay.
And I just said, he said, you want to open like a family restaurant with this, And I said, I don't want to do this. So let's go check out what Tulsa's all about. And I checked out Tulsa. I was like, this town's cool. Let's see what happens. And it's been 20 years.
20 years. So, and Tulsa is a really cool town. Where are you guys from?
My parents were born and raised on the island of Manhattan, never really left. almost at all. Like my dad went to uh they both went to like school sometimes off the island, but full-blown New Yorkers. My dad then went into the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War voluntarily into officer candidate school as well. So my brothers and sisters who are much older than me, about 15 years older than me, were all East Coast. I was then born on the East Coast, moved to California. Then when my dad got out of the Marine Corps, it's kind of interesting. He was kind of looking for a proper place to have a job. He had found like 2 jobs that didn't really work out. And the Alamo Rent-A-Car, which he applied to, they said, great, if you want to stay here in California at like a mid-level role, you could do that. Or we'll fast track you if you want to go, undo the damage of Newark, New Jersey, Mr. Marine New Yorker. And they sent him into the lion's pit. And he went and uneffed Newark, New Jersey's Alamo Rent-A-Car, and that's where I lived for a little while in Newark, New Jersey. And
drill sergeant, like we gotta fix this thing over there.
Pretty much. I mean, my dad's like not a yeller, but he's very good at motivating people. I think that's a real massive misconception about the Marine Corps is it's not yelling. It's like, come on, we can do it. Let's go. We got this. Like that's the mentality most of the time. Like, of course,
it's encouragement.
Of course, boot camp is aggressive because that's like to train you on a fight or flight response. But once you're in it, it's now he'll put the hammer down, and it was super interesting when he was there. Like the first thing he did was a lot of theft was occurring, so he was just like, "Don't rent." Like if he thought someone was going to steal a car, and he would just be like, "I don't know if you're going to steal this," and it wasn't so much. It would be like if someone, it wasn't like a race thing per se. It was like if someone came in and they had rented like 10 cars in the last month, he was like, we're not renting you a car anymore. Like, yeah, you have to rent a car. It's like, no, you don't. It's like, oh, I'm going to tell the police. Like, by all means, go tell the police. And
you remember, that part of New Jersey was like hotbed for
oh my God. He also, this is an interesting, like nuanced thing. There used to be bumper stickers on all rental cars. If you look back to the late 80s, early 90s, they would all say like Hertz on it, like as an ad. And he was like, hey, can we not have a big billboard that says jack this car? Like I'm a tourist.
This car's insured, take it.
Yeah. So it was a wild time living in Newark, New Jersey in the early 90s. And then eventually we moved into another part of Jersey, and I lived there till high school, and then went back to California. So I grew up bi-coastal.
Very cool. That's an experience in itself.
Yes, it is.
Being able to understand both sides of the country. All right. So then you make your way to, through the military by the grace of, perseverance and doing things that your mind probably didn't think you didn't even know that you weren't supposed to do. That's also, I mean, that turns the military into such an incredible experience for you because you got to prove some things that most people don't get to prove out over that time, right?
I'm very thankful for it. Not only because it's from a very functional level. Now I know how much sleep deprivation I could hang with. Yeah. I know how physically like dumb tired I could be and still force a decision. But then on top of that, I saw how, in America, we entrust 18-year-olds to be trained on very, very complicated things. And then when people are like, I can't train these kids, they're dumb. They don't know what they don't know what to do. I'm like, it ain't the kid, it's the training. Because you can get people want to be good at stuff if you allow them. And a lot of modern restaurants have zero to no training. They're like, well, follow this guy around. How does he not figure it out? It's like, well, you haven't done the process to show them. That's the problem. It's not the kid, it's you.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I was seeing the parallels as you were saying that it's always on the process and not on the person. In my experience too, it's all, and what we do is all about people and how we maintain and manage those relationships, right?
I completely agree. And I think the food, like there's so much of this industry that gets married to the thought of the food being all that matters. And I don't dispute at all I don't want to downplay how much it matters. It's just not the only thing that matters. And when you get locked in, like, well, we have the best pizza. Why are we not having a line? Like, if you don't have a line, it's not anyone's fault but you.
I agree. I have this thing, and I say it a lot. The experience of the guest will never exceed the experience of the team. So like, if it sucks for your people to be there, who's going to enjoy spending it? Like the people who get paid to be there hate it. So who's going to come in there and spend money there and enjoy it too? So,
It's a hard
it
ask.
it plays a whole lot into the experience, and this is all about experience. It's the food experience and the
Mhm.
service experience. So
Completely.
is that so tell us about Unsliced? Is that what well, even before we get to that, congratulations, 12 restaurants. Good, 12 things as you say, because it sounds like you're really diverse with fine dining, food truck, all the things that don't mix, right? How does one create a vision to even get to that point? So in my mind, to get to 12, you got to be thinking about 20. How does the vision go to get to that point?
I mean, I wish we could take credit for that, but a lot of the things, like, it was like, well, what we a lot of the times we were presented with an opportunity and we would run a performa on it, and it was like, this makes sense. Okay, do it. It was never like, we got to get to this number. It was, the
This
food
makes
hall.
sense
They're
for us.
like, the food hall was like, we're building a food hall. We'd love to have you be the anchor tenant to set the tone for other restaurants that are newer to the game. We're like, makes sense. Great. Good deal. Let's go. Fine dining restaurant. The building next to us, which had been like a juice bar, was closing. And we were like, well, it would be really easy if we could be that close to another restaurant. And it's a really great location and we had a lot of success with, I guess, take it. So each thing kind of was an opportunity that presented itself. And we, when met with an opportunity, it's FOMO. I don't know what it is, but we really game it, think it out, go through all the numbers, really analyze it. And if it makes sense, we're like, okay, do it. A lot of times we say no,
Yeah,
but it's always been what makes sense. Okay, great. And then we do it if it makes sense.
understood. Well, that's awesome too, to have people that trust you enough to bring opportunities forward, just to get your look, just to get your take on it, your look on it. But I'm guessing that the things you pass on probably don't come to light either. If you've been in that community and doing these things since 2005, are there things that you say no to that just don't ever happen because Mike didn't sign off?
When something like the things that someone's like, hey, you could be the official food purveyor at this location. Let's say it's a sporting facility or something.
Okay,
We'll look at the numbers like, okay, well, we got to staff it. They only have like 3 events a month. Da, 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 da.
it's too
Not for
much
us.
work.
And it's just like the ROI of it.
Yeah,
And then there's like, hey, could you do this? There's just things that we'll present. You should be in this town. We'll look at the town, the population density, the location of it. We're like, we could maybe make it work, but it's a lot of effort for a not a slam dunk.
uh,
So when we don't want to overly saturate the area. It's just a very nuanced thing. And then something else might go in there, but I have never had, to your point, something that we passed on where someone else went in there and had explosive success. That's not happened.
yeah, I understand that. And I also understand your point about stadiums, because while they look cool, it, that's just marketing. You're not there for
Yeah,
money, you're there for marketing, in my opinion.
like Tony Giovignani and Nick Bogas both are in like their stadiums, but they also have tier one sports at those. Like
So
if there was a
lots of
tier
events.
one, yeah, it's a different thing. We're talking like places that don't have tons of events. So that's when I was like, I don't know. That's what we passed on. For example, a lot of places like, hey, this restaurant on the other side of town just closed. Do you want to take it over? We walk it. We're like, we're gonna have to gut this place. This equipment's not gonna work. The location isn't gonna land. And then we're like, it didn't. And then we'll do a performa. Truly, numbers are what we go off of. It's not the emotion. It's really, we might even think it's going to work. And then we do run a performa on it based on density, based on our metrics. And then we're like, not, it's not a slam dunk. And I don't think it's got enough push to make it work. We're a pass.
Are these some of the same thought processes that you teach in the Unsliced program?
Yeah, I think one of the first things I show is how to decide whether or not you should do something versus you can do something. I think that's a big differentiator in business, that a lot of entry level restaurants are like, what can I do? And I want an entry level restaurant, first store, second store, to say yes to a lot of opportunities, but not overwhelm themselves with stuff that doesn't prove ROI. So it's a it's a decision matrix that I teach, whether it's, let's say your staff wants to do Dungeons and Dragons night at your restaurant. That's a yes. No matter what, it doesn't cost you anything. It might lead to something. It might not, it might be a dud. You should say yes to it. But then if it's like, hey, should I be on the uh, board of directors of this thing in my town? Okay, maybe we can nurture relationships and get a new sale. Or no, it's going to take 40 hours of a month to run this thing for the relationships I already have. That's a maybe I should not do it. And a
Yeah.
lot of new businesses start to say yes to everything that doesn't move the needle. And they're taking meetings with every single person that hits them up, trying every program that hits them up, and it's a lot of stuff does not prove ROI. And you have to, especially at this point, I have to be way more shrewd with my time.
Yeah. Do you feel like new businesses are a target for folks that are looking just to put a face or put a name or a company associated with whatever they're doing, right?
I think the majority of sales given to individual units, when they're like super excited to talk to a single store, they are a pariah. They are seeking to leech off that single store and get a dumb sale. Like if they're like, you should got to buy our magnets. We're the best magnet company in America. And they're calling and cold calling and cold calling. You could be pretty sure that's the worst magnet quality and price. And they're just saying these dummies will buy it from us. I think a lot of vendors too, I'm not speaking for all, but a lot of vendors, when they're aggressively going after a single unit first store restaurant, they're like, well, they have no negotiation power. Let's milk them. And if they die, they die. If they live, they live. But that's what's up. And I think it's important for those first stores to do a partner pariah approach, which is something I'm a big proponent of, which is look at this vendor. Are they a pariah, like they're seeking to live off you, or are they a partner? They want you to succeed with them. And here's again the decision matrix to determine, and can you turn the pariah into a partner? And if not,
Yeah.
how do you replace them? And going through your whole general ledger account and looking through all of them. Now, I'm also not a guy who's going to say they're all trying to screw you, never trust anyone. I'm not like that. But you have to make sure that they have paired interests with what you're looking to accomplish, and you're helping them accomplish their goals. Because if you don't, their goal is only going to be getting as much money out of you as possible.
Right. And it sounds like that comes down to the relationship you have with the person, right? With the
Yes, for
individual.
sure.
And I think every company wants to make money. That's,
Mhm.
no one's just going to give you everything and expect nothing in return. But how do you meet both of how do you have common goals and then work towards that? I like that
Totally
approach.
agree. How can
I
you
like that
bring
approach.
them as much value outside of cash
Yeah.
so that you have so much like, hey, I want my pricing to be great, but for the effort, I'm going to introduce you to these 10 other restaurants, or I'm going to talk about you on social media, or I'm going to do an email blast about how great you are. Like these are other ways a restaurant can provide value to a vendor or anyone that's not on payroll
Yeah.
and get the benefit back. Even if it's, hey, let me cater your kids' soccer event or whatever. If you're just becoming a human alongside another human, you give other variables to the relationship purely than monetization of you.
How difficult is it for a first store operator, single store operator to have those conversations when you're stuck in the weeds and you're probably in a function and those guys are going to call you at 4:45 on Friday and let's sign it, just sign this and I'll come over Monday and we'll take care of it. I know they're under attack, but how difficult is it for them to have those conversations?
I think it's extremely difficult, not just to have the conversation assumes that you have some level of negotiation ability and emotional intelligence, which are not intrinsically known. Some people are just good conversational, but you also need to know, hey, when am I being conned?
Hmm.
As well as not always thinking you're always being conned. So that's the tightrope walk, right? And then to find time for those conversations. And a lot of people get in their hidey hole of, well, I need to work on the line. I got to go. There's too much going on. I need to work on the line. Like you feel comfortable on the line. So you're going to the line because it's your comfort zone. It's maybe what you like doing, but you're blocking out what potentially could save you thousands in a proper negotiation. Just because I don't have time. I got to deal with this. And it's naive. There's a lot of naivete with a first store, a lot of ego,
Hmm.
misplaced ego. They wouldn't call it ego, but it's an ego with naivete. And it's instead of being, you got to have blue collar work ethic with white collar sensibility.
Mm. I like that. Well, and the business is done on the other side of the counter,
Hmm.
and not in the kitchen. You're doing it, and you're in that role, and you made it happen. And you're so proud of all of that. I get that. I love it too. I like making pizzas myself.
Yeah.
But every time we have those conversations, you end up making or saving thousands of dollars based on, a conversation about nickels and dimes.
For sure. And again, if someone's like, these prices are too high, you got to come down. I'm like, okay. It's the nuance. Another thing that another first stores just don't know is like, what is the structure of these businesses?
Hmm.
Because make the prices cheaper is not a negotiation. It's just like, sure thing. It needs to really be like, hey, I want to lock in these three items for the next 3 months,
Yeah.
based on the market. I believe that this is a fair price, and I've checked out the prices in other competitors. I want you to make your money. Like, that's a knowledgeable conversation, which
Hmm.
if you are a doctor or a lawyer, like, I'm super smart at those things, I'll open a restaurant. You got nothing. You got
You
no
don't.
awareness.
You didn't even know you could negotiate these things. Someone just came in and sold you the dream.
I agree. It's a lot of there's people who are like built in it and grew up in a restaurant or worked a restaurant, but still never were exposed to ownership. And then there's people who have these are the worst type of owners are the ones that are cocky out of the gate because they had success in some completely separate field and think that those skills will translate here, and they simply will not.
Yeah, I've seen that. In my experience has been in franchising, so I've seen that story happen so many times where someone is leaving tech or whatever industry
Mhm.
they were in to come, live the glamorous life of a franchise, and it's incredibly humbling and can cost you quite a bit of money if you're not coming into it with the right mindset, the right approach, and
Absolutely.
and taking the time to learn. You get guys that say, all right, I got 2 weeks to train, teach me everything you learn. I'm like, you want me to teach you everything I've done over the last 20 years in 2 weeks, and you barely show up? That's tough. Who That's a tough
Well,
one.
that's kind of what I've done. I've been like, all right, you got 2 weeks. It might take you a month or so, but I broke it all down because I created that because I felt there was a need for it. I
Yeah,
didn't see a lot of restaurant consultants who were speaking from the owner perspective, like as an owner, the emotional toll that you're going through. But even more so, like as much as I was talking about the pariahs on the single unit, I see a lot of these guys who are rich in some other aspect of their life, and then they'll go in and they're like, "Oh, well, we could fix all this for you. It's just going to cost 90,000 bucks." They're like, "Okay, that's a good price." I'm like, "What did you pay? What did you drop on that?" No, they milked you, man. That's not cool. But there's a lot of people who are sharks out there looking for the single unit operator, even the six store operator. You could sign on for something and it's not going to prove. They're like, well, they got six stores, they got money. And with such a slim margin business, you make 3 or 4 mistakes and you could have lost money
yeah,
across the whole company.
very easily. And I think that's
Very.
also a misconception. I like that you had that focus on, let's take a look at the pro forma. Let's really vet this out financially before we make the next decision that we have to make. I think what gets missed in the process is how much things actually cost out there. There's all these estimates out there. Say, oh, you can do this, and equipment costs this, and all of that. And I saw a guy last week on Instagram, and they're building their first place, and had no idea there was going to be a plumbing issue, and had to rip up the whole floor, and time and money.
Yeah.
So now that project is going to take longer. It's going to cost significantly more, and those are the types of things that could possibly derail a whole project if not prepared. And I like that you taking time to build in those preparations. How long? So you say your course could take up to a month. How long does it should people spend in it? And I'm guessing and I'm gonna do it because I'm guessing that's something you get access to, and it becomes a reference tool, right? For
Yeah.
forever.
I built it in a manner where it's a one time thing and it's yours. And then we do a group call and that keeps on going in perpetuity. It's the what I would want if someone's like, hey, Mike, because I was getting a lot of people, Mike, fly out to my town and do this. And I was like, and we did it like twice. And this was great. I love this. I can't do it all the time. So how can I fly out to you, give you everything, and then if you have a question about it, we just talk about it on a once a week, Zoom. And the beauty of I couldn't do this 10 years ago. now it's doable. Like
Yeah.
Zoom and training programs are at that point. So I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is so cool. I felt that, this all kind of stemmed from my 40th birthday. I wanted to learn guitar. I bought a guitar. I went and got guitar lessons at Guitar World, and it was just not good. They were
Yeah.
not a good lesson. And then I saw Metallica released like on Musician, an app. Here's how you play Master Puppets from James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett. I'm like, oh wow, that's how you do it. And I was looking at him play. I'm like, so I'm learning from the guy, not a guy, but the guy on video. He's not teaching me right now. He's in a tour bus somewhere on the other side of the world, but I'm right there learning from him. What if I could do that and
Yeah.
give that one-to-one feel, but also be a support system while not having it eat up all my time? And that's someone who's like, well, how do you run 12 restaurants? I'm like, well, let me show you. That's what I thought would be awesome. And whether it's, well, here's what to avoid at one store, here's how to build out this store. I interviewed 50 restaurant owners and saw about 8 main things that were problematic or that they needed work on. The first was getting owners on the same page. Like a lot of the time, there's not a vision for the restaurants. Like, well, we exist, right? No, like here's the expectation. Even if you're a solo owner, like here's the deal. Then it's just metrics. People are like, well, what is prime cost? Most restaurant consultants kind of start and stop here with here's your food cost, here's your labor cost, here's how to do it. And that is very important, but it's not all that there is.
Right.
Marketing, like what is marketing? What should you be pushing for? Who is your client? How do you know who they are? How are you positioning what you're going to say? And reviews and how to game them. And right now we are the second best reviewed city in America for pizza. Number 1's New York. Number 2 is Tulsa. And we are the best reviewed pizza in there. So the gaming of reviews, not only being great, but also having reviews that back that up and nurturing that relationship, intrinsically, I've done very well at. After that, we get into all things employees. How do you get great employees? How do you keep great employees? Then all things vendors, people not on payroll, partners and pariahs. And then last but not least, when people are like, I got all this, but I just can't systemize it. Here's how you create a system and manage a system for anything instead of managing people. And it's on a very simple level. People will create a system and then they don't know how to execute it continually. They don't know how to have it ping them. So they're checking the system and then no one uses the system or like, why did the system fail? And I've been through that so many times. I was like, I am creating the system. I am not letting it fail. What could I do to ensure it does not fail? And now I've gotten to a point where we have that. And now I show other people how to do it themselves.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you touched on people. I assume that you must have a team that you're incredibly proud of at this point, to continue to run and, grow your organization while coaching and teaching and doing that part of it too. Author, sounds like a really busy guy. You must have a great team.
I do. The team is impeccable. I'm still in the mix with them. I'm still doing it, but like there also has to be the time where you allow other people to win.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of owners, when I see an employee who comes up with an idea, like, that's great. No, we're not doing that. And it's like, only my ideas. Those are the only ones that we do, instead of nurturing the other ideas. So then that employee is just like, well, who gives a crap? Nothing I do here matters. So they become disenfranchised. So letting other people win is how you systemize, is how you grow. But also, why are they going to want to do that? Which is the nuance of ownership. It can't be because they want to avoid getting in trouble. A lot of owners lead through stick with a little bit of carrot. Instead, like, here's the incentive. A lot of don't do that or else. Don't do that or else. I need a lot more carrot, a little bit of stick, and then the biggest one, which is neither one of those two, which is ideologically. Like, do we feel we're a part of something bigger than ourselves? If we don't, then this is just a job, and it's just another thing I could quit at any point in time, and it doesn't matter. We have to get employees to the ideological level, which means we actually do believe in something, which means that we actually do try to do something beyond cheese on bread or whatever we're serving. And when you get staff on that level, attrition just plummets.
Yeah. And understanding that you play an important role in that vision too. I think that's great. I was a regional director for a fast food chain here, and there was just a Checkers. So and we had a ton of turnover, and not just in our organization, but throughout the entire system. And had a conversation with a girl that was leaving. She was going to take another job. This was at the height of COVID, and everyone's overpaying, and wages are going through the roof. And it was at that point I realized, like, the paycheck's just not enough to keep people here at no point, because that girl left and she said, I'm like, we had her in a program. She's working towards becoming a shift leader, and she took $1 more an hour to go work overnight at a grocery store. And she goes, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just come back here because you guys are always looking for people. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that was like the slap in the face, the punch in the mouth, the realization that we have to build something and put together something that's way more valuable to them than the paycheck that they get every week or every other week.
Totally agree.
That was an eye opener for us. She said, it's Checkers. You'll always be hiring. You'll take me back anytime.
We're the backup school, or the desperate girlfriend or boyfriend, however you want to define. Like, that's what it becomes when you do it that way. And you got to provide a ton of value.
Yeah.
And then be more curated in who gets to work there, but also bring a lot of value to those who do. Always be hiring, but also be like calculated about it. There's so much nuance to it, but it does boil down to being relational.
Yeah.
And to not treating people like automatons. And that's nothing that an Excel spreadsheet can teach.
No, and it never will. Leadership plays an important role in all of that. But as an owner, do you also consider yourself the leader at each one of your places, or do you have a leadership structure that says, look, hey, Mike's our guy, but you can talk to me about what's going on here?
For sure. Organizational charts matter a lot. The boots on the ground of that particular store, who's in there, 50 hours or whatever, whether it's 35 to however they are doing their schedule, it's going to matter a lot. So is that leader leading by example and following our core values? Like, so that's where my leadership, my brother's leadership permeates their leadership. They're still, but we are all Andolinis. They are Andolini. It's like, no, that's your business. It has to be, we all work for Andolinis. I work for Andolinis. You don't work for me. We all work for this. And when that's the approach, it's easier to get us to our goals. But organizationally, if they have a problem, they got to go to their superior. If their superior is not giving them their answer, there has to be a means for them to reach out to me. And it's not like, no, send me a pigeon with a message on it, and maybe I'll see it in 2 years. Like, it has to be like, hey, this is something that's going on. So we have a lot of ways to access, whether it's my phone or my email and my brother's, or connecting with us at all times. But if someone's like, hey, this is a problem I see, I'm like, well, did you go to your kitchen manager yet? That's the first thing. If they're like, yeah, and he said it was dumb, I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation about that. So there's a beauty in not being overly soullessly corporatized, but still having structure. And I think there's a beautiful middle ground to be found that I don't see in many restaurants that we seek to achieve.
I like that. I like that approach. And I mean, and when you're there and you're visible in the restaurants, people are going to approach you, right? So there has to be some level of comfortability with you to say, hey, can I talk to you? Can I pull you aside and talk about this thing? And I guess the I don't know how to put it, but having the place where you can be vulnerable and things aren't going to go bad for you. I can open up and talk to anybody in this organization. I think that becomes an important role when talking about just growing in general. People have to be comfortable enough to be vulnerable.
Having evals that are open evals, their evals are anyone's eval is seen by all of us at on the top level. Okay. So no matter what, dishwasher at a random store, like their eval and what they write is sent. We also have it where they hit the send button, the staff. So the person being evaluated gets to write whatever they want. So they're in their evaluation, like, you did this right, this right, this right, this right. They could write, I think this store is run horribly. I think this is bullcrap. I don't like working here at all. And I think you're garbage. Send. And it goes right to me. Like, so, and when we started doing it, we had a few of those. And we're like, oh, we better go check this store out. So communication, but effective communication, effectively conveying that. And in a perfect scenario, I'm going into a store and just joshing with people,
Yeah.
having fun with it. If they're like, oh, who's the owner? I'm like trying to not have them feel that way.
Yeah.
I'll do a lighthearted joke. We'll do a staff development party in 2 weeks called Andomania. And that, talking to all the staff, having to break out of their hidey holes and see other stores and talk with us and have fun for a whole night is what we do there. And these are the things that we strive for. It's the things that I've just created kind of like through gut feeling, like we need to have like a full company party that doesn't suck. And then I was like, wow, that really worked. And it led to less attrition and it led to more satisfaction. I should tell more restaurant owners about how we did that. And then I was like, that's not just like an idea, a suggestion. That's like a mandate for a successful restaurant group to have that. And as I've grown, I've taken the things that worked. And I was like, holy crap, that worked. All right. And now that's what I share with the stuff I do outside of Andolini's.
I love that. And it has to attract other A players in the market. Like people want to work for organizations that have that much fun and that people enjoy being a part of that much. I think that's a great way to just to mitigate we all go through staffing challenges, right? But if you know you're going to always attract A players because of your culture and because of your environment and because the people who work for you are singing the praise of, their job that they love so much. That's how you attract the top talent to come to your team.
That's and also keeping them too.
Yeah.
When they're like, well, I could go there like, oh, but I miss Andomania. Like I want them to say that.
Yeah. So what tell us about Andomania? What's that? Is it just it's not a pizza party. It sounds like it's something crazy.
Each year I like mix it up. We'll go to a different, usually a brewery. This year the brewery has a bunch of volleyball courts. So we're calling it Andomania Ball. We get shirts made for everyone. They all, for their individual stores, have shirts. There's a point system of who shows up with like the best team unity. Then I'm going to have them play volleyball while eating pizza, while doing a few other random things simultaneously for points to like see which store can win. I might have them like walking around holding like a tray of cups and just adding on levels of pizza and restauranting and stupid. So it's like dorky and fun, but also kind of in the like, no, I'm going to train for this. I'm going to do this, and getting them all super hyped on it. And then, having alcohol, but having it super safe. If you're under the age of 21, all sorts of guardrails to prevent them from drinking. If they are over the age of 21, not letting people get, stupid with it, bringing a bunch of food, making food, and having it be like this big old party that's just a dumb celebration of pizza and fun and Andolini's. And a lot of staff members are like very thankful and things. And then the real culmination, if they win, I have one version of it here, like the title belt, like the store that wins.
Oh, I see it back there.
They get the Andolini's title belt. I ordered 2 and I was like, that's so cool. So I keep one at my desk, but they win to get the Andolini's title belt at their store. So that's a point of contention. Like the GMs all year long are like, I'm getting a title belt. You're losing it. I'm taking it. And they're training with their staff. And it's that level of dorkiness coupled with competition. I used to do staff development parties where it's like, okay, I guess we'll all go bowling, and which was fine, but we would find ourselves, they play like 3 lanes of bowling, and then this clique sat in the corner with this clique, and they're going outside the vape, and they're just drinking for free. And I'm like, this is expensive for nothing. I don't like this. So we need to gamify this and make this a thing.
I love it. Do you also build in like some recognition with the party, or is that something that's handled totally separate?
It's a good idea. I've always been apprehensive of like saying, because I went to parties when I was like working for another restaurant when I was in college, where it was like the employee of the year, and you had the why I've edged against that. I don't have any problem with someone who does do it, but I'm like, okay, that one person is going to feel super like, I guess all the attention's on me, and then everyone else will be like, this is bull crap. I should have got it. Like there's a lot of the potential for problems from it is a lot. Like,
I understand.
So I've kind of held back. Like, what's the win here? I thought about doing other things like Andolini's prom. I thought about that. Like, let them all get dressed up for prom and have a DJ, like playing cheesy 80s prom songs on. But this is the type of fun that I want them all to have.
I like that. Well, there's no pressure. There's no social pressures that go along with it, right? It's just come be
No.
yourself and have fun.
Some of them are going just to eat pizza and drink. Some are going to win the game. Some are going to meet other restaurants because they don't get to see them as much socially. And it's all those things combined.
Is there always competitiveness between the restaurants?
I want there to be. I've done it with and without. We've always had some level of, I've had this competition because this is like the 9th year I've done this or something. Yeah. I've had the competition get extreme and go to like 2:30 in the morning. I'm like, all right, we got to back it up a little bit. Like, I was like, once you've ran as a team in a circle for 20 minutes, you now need to take the briefcase to the other side of Tulsa and bring it back. Like, I've done, and then I've just burned them out. Like, I've had the rules all over the place, and they're like half in the bag, so they can't do it. I've had eating contests that I thought would be real chill, and people are like getting sick. So I've done this a lot of different ways. I was like, eat a whole canister of cheesy poofs and 2 liters, and whichever team could eat them all first. I didn't realize how hard it is to eat the Sam's Club cheesy poof thing. Like that's
the big tub of it.
Yeah. I eat that between like 5 people. I thought that'd be easy. It's extremely hard.
It's so messy.
And it's and it's like 50,000 calories. Like I had no idea how much fat is in those. And so like it's a bone of contention. So people are like, are we doing cheesy poofs this year? I'm like, I don't think you can hang with the cheesy poofs.
Now they want to conquer it.
So this year, while they're playing volleyball, someone has to eat a pizza. Now they can all eat the pizza simultaneously for every pizza eaten to get an extra point. So are they going to game it where one person's just slamming pizza in a corner, or are they all going to try and eat pizza while playing volleyball? You know,
you're going to have to choose.
See, and that's what makes it not just, are you good at volleyball? You have other aspects to this to make it like unique and fun and specific. I kind of took some inspiration from, this is a deep dive, but Rock and Jock in the early 90s on MTV to be like Rock and Jock softball, Rock and Jock basketball, where it was like a game of basketball, but it was like there'd be 3 hoops on top of each other. And they would just,
fun too.
It was super fun, but you could not be good at basketball, but win because there would be like this other little component to it. So that's what I look to do with it.
I like that. That levels the playing field so your athletes can't just gang up and go dominate, you know. That's what I would do. Like, no, I'm picking my team. We're gonna kill this thing. Oh man. So, you know, I love, you know, all the things that you're touching on and talking on. You know, the 8 points sound like you could really come out of that with a very well-rounded, you know, knowledge for going into this. Who benefits the most from Unsliced? Is it someone who is aspiring to get into the pizza game or I mean, these are lessons for not just pizza or restaurant. These are lessons for leadership, in my opinion. Who benefits the most from the program?
So I built this specifically for any restaurant owner, any independent or soon to be independent restaurant owner. So whether you're pre-open or you're existing, shy of being, you know, 20 units, everything I'm teaching here works. So if you're at 8, like there's stuff in there if you're at 8 units. Because a lot of people at 8 units are still doing the processes of that they created and never really created. They're just running like a chicken with their head cut off. If you're at 1 to 2, like how do you get out of your own way?
Yeah.
If you're pre-open, they're like, well, is this right for me if I'm not open yet? I'm like, well, it would be really great if you opened with recipes, with cards, with an HR awareness, rather than trying to run the marathon while tying your shoes. And that's the best way I can describe it. Like a lot of people this business is running a marathon. Mm-hmm. Now, are your shoes tied? A lot of people are like, I can't do my recipe cards. I've got to run a restaurant. Like you're running a marathon with shoes that are untied. And then some people are like, well, once we get open, then we'll tie our shoes. I'm like, I'm going to run them 2 to 3 miles and even go further on that analogy. They're trying to run this marathon in loafers.
Yeah.
They're just not, it's like, let's get you set up, get some good running shoes and tie them, then run and then fly and go to your goal, as opposed to everyone running in the wrong direction, kind of walking, kind of tripping over each other, which is what a lot of restaurant ownership is.
that figure it out as you go mentality. I'm good. I work hard. It looks easy enough. I can figure it out.
I always think about it goes in my head because like no, your goal is to go from point A to point B. Like, well, I used a lot of effort. I'm like, yeah, you jumped in place. You spent a lot of effort jumping in place. I want you to run to that point as fast as possible. And you're like, but I'm sweating. I'm working so hard. I'm like, you ran left to right and jumped up and down in your loafers that aren't tied. It's everything wrong. Just everything's wrong here. And they're like, no, it's not. It's like, yeah, it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot to learn, and I appreciate you even without being in as part of the program, without even purchasing. I'm a part of your email list, and there's a ton of value that I'm getting just from the email. And even before I go there, dude, I love the emails, by the way. And I email too, but I like overthink it. And there's all these pictures and all. Your email is so straight to the point. Here's the link to the blog, and now I understand it because it probably makes it incredibly, efficient to track who's doing what and who's clicking. So I love the email, by the way. But there's always value in my inbox. Like this is how I decided to get more press leads, or how do I write a press release? How do I get on TV? How did I build my menu? Like all those little things. If you just have that question, and I don't know how you know what I'm thinking every week, but there's like the straight answer. Get to it and move on. So you always give a ton of value, and I appreciate you for that. Your content is great on social media. And so if anybody wants to, how do they find you? How do they get the program? You got every tier of value there is. So how do they get with you?
Well, thank you very much for the kind words. If you're interested at all in what I do, go to getunsliced.com. I made the single website page, explain everything. Getunsliced.com. On Instagram, I'm at Mikey Bausch, and everything I'm doing on Instagram and in the emails is information. And I think it brings a lot of value, but it's information. What the program is the transformation, a holistic A to Z, how to do this in order, nuts and bolts, building it in your vision. So I'll show you like, hey, here's how I did a press release, but instead it's like, okay, here's the points to cover. Here's everything about it. Here's when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, ensure that it worked. That's what I do in the program, which is the value. So I want to make sure that people have a ton of value and that the way to go about it is out there. Cause I don't think this job needs to be so hard, but I also think that people need to realize that they're signing on to be more than a chef. And go check out my reviews. I don't suck at cooking, but I think people look at a lot of the stuff we've done are like, well, I mean, that guy's not really a cook, he's just more about systems. Like I am fanatical about systems because they're what's going to send my kid to college. But food has to be incredible. And there's a lot of great restaurants that are going to open today with arguably Michelin level food that are going to be empty because they have garbage systems.
And it's an important lesson to learn. You have to run a business and deliver great product.
For sure.
Well, if we didn't even get a chance to really touch on World Pizza Champions, that means you got to come back so we can talk about what it means to become a World Pizza Champion. But I know you got another call. I won't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for joining us. Just even a ton of great information here given today. So I'll put links in the show notes. I don't know if people actually read show notes, but we will put all the links
show notes lately. I've been doing
Are you looking at the show notes?
If I'm like, that was interesting. What's the link? I'll be at a stoplight and click the link and then just save it. So by all means, I don't suck and I'm not a BS artist. So if you want a party with me, I'll happy to take you. Everything in my program is restaurant focused. As much as I've had success in pizza, I've seen a lot of non-pizza restaurants have success with these. And we saw that when our fine dining restaurant became the best accoladed fine dining restaurant in Tulsa. I was like, oh, wow, this system is not unique to cheese on bread.
Man, so it's for all of us restaurant folks out there, not just the pizza folks. Go check them out. Again, we'll link everything in the show notes. Mike, thanks again for joining us, and we'll be in touch. I'm gonna stop the recording, but hang out there for a second.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.